Welcome into another edition of Jungle Juice. It's Sam Gormley and Mick Nelson with you. Mick, it has been a week since we last talked, and a lot has happened. But how you doing?
Oh, doing quite well. Actually went to the Reds game with my firm this afternoon. Didn't see a win, but just got to see some baseball at the ballpark instead of working. So that was always going to be a plus for me. How
The
about
last
you?
the last businessman special of the year. I know, so you had to take it up on that.
Oh yeah,
Which is great. I know I'll be there on Sunday, which is, I mean, this is a Bengals podcast, so we don't want to talk more, but could be a little bittersweet of the final home game for one Joey Votto. And I don't know how I feel about that, but this is not a Reds podcast, so we won't talk all the way about Joey Votto, even though that we are both quite big fans of
I
the
might have to
Canadian.
get some last minute tickets to that. Yeah, I didn't even think of like, oh yeah, it definitely could be the last
Yeah,
Joey
it
Votto home
absolutely
game. So
could be the last one. I get to be on the boat, which I'm excited about. So
okay,
I've
is
never
this a
been.
work thing?
It
Is this
is. It
okay?
is. It is our state Kentucky Broadcasters Association convention. It is the first opening event. So we get to do that, and then we get to go on a riverboat and tour the city and so on. But yeah, so I'm excited for it. And then they didn't really. It's just happens to be a coincidence that our broadcasters convention is in Covington, Kentucky, and the Bengals play the Rams on Monday night. That's going to be one of the topics that we'll talk about today on the show. Of course, we'll recap the Bengals Ravens game and Capgate. Is that what we're calling it? We'll have to talk. We're going to dive all the way into that.
Half watch, I would say. I
Calf
don't know if
watch,
there's any
calf
scandal behind
gate.
what's going on here.
We don't know. There could be scandal. We don't know that there's not scandal with the calf. We'll talk about that. And then obviously we got to continue moving on is if this calf thing is legitimate. We're going to kind of talk through all of the options of, okay, let's say worst case scenario and Burrow has to sit out a couple of weeks. How do we feel about that? What do we think will happen? That'll be some of the things that we'll talk about up on the show. And then, of course, we'll wrap it up with the picks for this week. Mick and we correctly predicted week one. We incorrectly predicted last week. So who knows which way we'll go today. As, of course, we're streaming on the Facebook page for Jungle Juice. Make sure you follow us there. We're on YouTube for Jungle Juice Podcast. Subscribe to us there. And we also want to make sure we give a shout out to Josh Isles and his page WDN Today. Make sure you follow him. He's got a lot of great content happening there. We're also streaming live on that page as well. So make sure you let us know where you're watching from. Let us know you're joining and your favorite players and so on. And also let us know how you're feeling about the team and so on, because we got to start with breaking down the Bengals Ravens on Sunday afternoon. Mick and I, we were both in attendance, and I've been trying to figure out the words to describe how I felt walking out of Paycor, and I'm still not really sure how I feel.
Yeah. I felt somewhat encouraged after the Ravens game. Now, obviously, the team did not win, but the offense did show some life. They showed that they were able to move the ball down the field in the second half. They looked a lot more crisp. Now, we're not seeing like the big chunk plays yet, which we didn't really see, in the first 2 weeks of last year either. So maybe the playbook starts to open up. But now with this whole calf injury thing, I just don't know what to think about it. And what my future hopes are, I guess. There's a lot of uncertainty going into the upcoming weeks of the season.
Yeah, 100%. And the calf is going to be something we're going to talk about here in a few minutes, because there's obviously a lot to discuss with this. I know I was telling you as we were driving in that I said that, obviously I wanted the team to win. Obviously that's what we want. We don't want the team to ever lose a game. But I told you something along the lines of, I just hope that if they lose, I feel better than I did against the Browns. And that was accurate, that I did feel better, because I think, was the offense explosive? No. Was it inept? No, it was not. I think you're kind of seeing them trend in the right direction, because I think the offense as a whole made me feel a little bit better about the performance on Sunday.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a lot of parallels to that Cowboys game last year where, it's kind of like, the offense finally gets going, but then the defense just kind of wasn't playing up to par, or wasn't playing at the same quality that we're used to seeing for them.
I think, last week we did kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I think that there are kind of aspects of everything with that. And I think starting with the good, the positives from that game, I mean, listen, we got to give a shout out to Charlie Jones. Lou Anarumo, or not Lou Anarumo, Darren Simmons said that when he was looking for a new punt returner in the draft, he said that he wanted somebody to, quote, put the fear of God into the other team. And Charlie Jones against the Browns really didn't show anything, really hasn't shown anything. I mean, even in the preseason, he didn't really have any returns that were even somewhat exciting. And then all of a sudden, he gets his chance against the Ravens and breaks one. And I think, Mick, here's the thing that's maybe the most impressive thing about Charlie Jones is who he did it against. This is against the Ravens. John Harbaugh's background, special team. Like, this is not going up against some random team. This is against a guy who knows the ins and outs of special teams, and he breaks it. And I mean, listen, does a lot of credit go to Charlie Jones? Of course. But it also goes a lot of credit to the blockers who created a nice path for him as well. And then also the refs are picking up the flag, because I watched back and I didn't see anything.
No, I didn't see anything either. What was it? Like were they trying to think there was like a block in the back there or something like that?
I guess I saw that in the backside there was something that could have potentially been, if you had the wrong angle, you could have maybe seen that there was a little bit of a block in the back. And I don't even remember as to who it was, but because I remember immediately, the catch pretty much happened right in front of us where he caught the punt. We had the great angle and we saw it as he turned upfield, and we kind of see, since we're sitting in the upper deck, we're lucky enough to see as the hole kind of opens up, we get to see the play develop, and we could immediately see, oh, here we go. And then we all saw the yellow flag come out, and then it was like, oh, well, that was fun now, wasn't it? Well, and then when they picked it up, because I don't think, even my most optimistic side was expecting them to pick that flag up.
Yeah, that's and going into that play too, there was a couple flags that were thrown the Bengals' way. Like, the Bengals got some tough breaks going into that. Now, I was kind of away during that whole fumble situation with Lamar, so I wasn't entirely sure
what happened. Hands to the face on the fumble play, and I don't know. I didn't really see a replay of that play. Was it a so
good
they
call?
showed one replay at the stadium, and and see, it's always tough. Now, it'd be great if you're watching with us and you watch the game on TV. I'm sure they showed you a better replay of it to let us know what you thought of it. And I always like this too, is give us your non-Bengals fan take. Like, try and take the Bengals fan hat off and, like, let's go legit. Was it hands to the face on that? And the very brief, and it was one of those that I saw out of the corner of my eye, I didn't really see much, but it might have, like, it didn't not happen, but I don't know that it happened enough to get the penalty. And again, that seems like it's
so like any holding call on defensive backs 2 minutes into the remaining playoff games. Is that what you're saying? Someone along those lines?
Are we having flashbacks now?
We don't have to talk about that particular one. We can talk about the Super Bowl call if we want. Not the Bengals.
I was going to say I'm not wearing my Logan Wilson jersey here, but I mean, that's one of those plays that, I mean, I always joke that, have the ongoing joke of, play here, play there. And, you talk about the 2 turnover plays in this game, and if they go the other way, I mean, I think that, we would be saying, is in the words of, the legendary Lexington sportscaster, Lexington, Kentucky, and former Bengals radio guy, Alan Cutler, would say it's a great day to be a Bengals fan. Because I think, if that Lamar fumble happens, they get the ball. If they weren't in the red zone, they were pretty much right on the outer edge of the red zone.
Field goal range at the very least.
So let's say, okay, worst case scenario, Burrow gets sacked and it's a 48-yard field goal. Bang, McPherson hits it. There's 3 points right there. Oh, look, maybe it's a tie game. And then obviously the biggest play, which I think can kind of be transitioning into the bad, was that pick by Joe Burrow in the red zone. A huge play. There's no other way to put it.
Yeah, it's a potential 6-point swing. So yeah, I mean, because after the Ravens had a punt after the fumble, right? They didn't score on that drive, so they ended up punting the ball eventually. Then the Charlie Jones play happens, so that's a 3-point swing there, and then throw the interception. That's another 3-point swing, and then the Ravens end up driving down the field for a touchdown that following drive. So, I mean, yeah, that's a potential, in culmination, that's almost a 13-point swing if you think about it that way. So,
yeah, and I mean, listen, we're not saying, I don't like to be one of those guys that says, oh, one play changes a game. There's obviously multiple plays that lead up to it. There were some missed throws. The defense, I think, as a whole, was not great on Sunday against the Ravens. I think it was, especially comparatively speaking, to really the last time they faced Lamar on Sunday Night Football, where they really held him in check. I think for the most part, other than one play at the end of the game where he made the big run, which led to the game-winning field goal by Justin Tucker. But I think Lamar had, I'll put it this way. I think he had his best game against a legitimate Bengals defense.
Yes.
I think you understand what I'm saying by that. I don't count the Nick Vigil defense in 2019. That doesn't count.
No, yeah. This might be one of the best games I've seen from Lamar personally. Now, I haven't watched so much footage of Lamar. I know he had the MVP season in 2019 where he was just torching NFL teams. But this is Lamar's second game in a brand new offensive system. And I thought Lamar was pretty much on it. Now, did he have a couple of missed throws? Yes. But he also had a couple of really nice throws. That throw to Zay Flowers, the big pass play in the game. Cam Taylor-Britt had fairly decent coverage on Zay Flowers, and Lamar just threw an absolute dime. There was really not much Cam Taylor-Britt could have done in that play. So Lamar had a good game. Now, I know a lot of people have been talking, well, Lamar ran for a lot of yardage, and there was a lot of scramble yardage. They're like, well, why isn't there a spy? Well, they did have a spy. Now, we could say that they didn't execute, but if you're kind of looking at the footage, anytime there's a spy on a scrambling play from Lamar, they end up running like a crossing route with probably Hill or one of the other running backs, probably Hill for the most part. That ends up becoming the priority of that spy because you don't want to give up the pass play for a first down, and then Lamar breaks the line of scrimmage and then scrambles for first down yardage. So it's kind of a catch-22 on what you prefer to happen on the defense if that situation arises.
Yeah, and I think that Lamar, and I say this all the time, and listen, you can see over my shoulder there, or I guess it's over this shoulder. I've got the UK. I'm not sure how visible it is, but I've got the UK thing hanging there. Look, Lamar played for Louisville. I have always never been a huge Lamar guy. For one, I'm not really a fan of how he handles himself. I know that there have been a couple of times where he's not. I'm big into if you win, you shake the hand of the other quarterback, and if you lose, shake the hand of the other quarterback. And there have been a couple of times where he's lost and he's walked off the field without shaking the hand of the other quarterback. And I don't agree with that. That to me just shows a lot about the kind of person you are. And I've always said Lamar is as good of an athlete out of anybody that is in the NFL. I think an argument could be made, in a long time. He's up in that top tier of just pure athlete, but he's an average NFL passer. And listen, an average NFL passer is still really good because I think you're looking at him. He is a great athlete, but he's Andy Dalton as a quarterback.
I don't know if I can go that far on the quarterbacking skills. Now, yeah, I don't know about that. I mean,
because when you think about it, big games, he never comes through.
So, yeah, if you're looking at it from that perspective of the clutch aspect later on in the season, the playoff games, I guess Lamar Jackson may be Andy Dalton. And Lamar does have one playoff win under his belt at least. Andy had 0. But I do get what you're saying where they kind of massively underperform in the playoffs. And
I'm more just saying as far as pure talent as well. And we're not getting into the Lamar Jackson conversation here. I'm probably bringing it up. But that's what kind of worries me is leading into the defense, because I came away very disappointed with how the defense played, whereas I was fine with how they played week 1.
Yeah, I think you're starting to see some of the inexperience in the secondary a little bit. The secondary honestly held up okay, but the lack of a pass rush just gave Lamar all day to throw. And that's where I think you may be seeing a different Lamar this year, is that, in years past when plays weren't getting open for Lamar was kind of just, he he wasn't looking to make the second or the third read, and it doesn't seem like in this game in particular, he definitely was patient enough to stay in the pocket and wait for a receiver to come open. And I think that is I think that's the thing about the defense that was kind of disappointing, is that you saw a decent pass rush in week 1 against the Browns, that you saw no pass rush against the Ravens in week 2. So that might be a little concerning. And the Ravens had starters out in the offensive line.
And that's the exact point that I was going to make, is that the Browns have an upper echelon offensive line. I think an argument could be made. An argument could be made that they might even have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL.
And I think the same argument can be made for the Ravens if they had Ronnie Stanley and Tyler Linderbaum in, and they didn't. And so you had 2 backups in there, and the Bengals still couldn't really do anything with their pass rush.
I mean, they barely touched Lamar the entire game, and there were opportunities that they had to get him as well.
Yeah. Now Lamar did make rushers miss just on a consistent basis. So you got to give kudos to him on just putting his athleticism at play there and making guys miss. So, but still, even with that, there was really no pass rush to see in that game.
And that is, I think it is a little bit concerning long term, because if we're being honest, the Bengals have really, under Lou Anarumo, and that's partially scheme, they've never been a huge pass rushing team.
Yeah.
That's just being honest. And then the question comes down to it, and it is legitimate, is can you win, and again, it's wild for me to say this, can you win the big game without an elite pass rusher? And it's wild because, the Bengals have won many of these quote-unquote big games when it comes to this. But I don't know that this defense has really had the opportunity to come away with the start on it. Jared here writes in, he says, no pass rush by design. They were trying to contain the whole game. And that might be accurate. But
yeah, I don't know. If you look at the footage, I don't think they were really trying to play contain. You don't see the edge rushers intentionally just kind of like holding off and staying back. You see them trying to gain traction against these tackles to get Lamar in the backfield, but they just weren't getting anything done. And yeah, I don't know. It was just a bad time for the front four on Sunday.
And that's the thing, is that I think if we're being honest, the Bengals really only have one true pass rusher on their defensive line.
Yeah.
And that's Trey Hendrickson. They have one. And Trey he's probably like, he is not in that upper tier. I don't think he's not in the Myles Garrett. He's not in the TJ Watts. He's not into that tier. Now I get that the Bosas and so on. Is he in that second tier? I think he can be when he's good. But I do think that Trey at times I don't know if disappears the right word, but he does become a non-factor. And that's what kind of worries me, is I think that they were hoping that Myles Murphy could become the steal and become more of a complement there to Trey Hendrickson on that pass rush as well. But I just haven't seen any of that. And I know Myles Murphy also was probably more of the Sam Hubbard role as well.
Yes.
But I think you need to have more pass rushing in this NFL. Now, I don't know it's necessarily to beat a team like the Ravens, but you got a game on Monday where a big pass rush could really help, because let's be real, Matthew Stafford's athleticism right now is like us back there, which is not great.
Yeah, so I guess
there's a little bit of a difference in the athleticism between Matthew Stafford and Lamar Jackson. Just a smidge.
For sure. And then if we're kind of looking at the pass rush in general against the Ravens, is that, I guess you could also put BJ Hill kind of in the category as that other pass rusher on the team. Now, DJ does get pretty good pass rushing as well, but where the injuries were, now I know Linderbaum was out at center, but both of the guards were starting and were healthy. I think Zeitler had a really good game at handling. I think he was on BJ Hill for the most part in that game on Sunday, and I think he did a pretty good job of maintaining the interior. And then I just don't know what was going on with Sam and Trey. Now, I think that I'm not hitting the panic button on the pass rush for the rest of the season, but yeah, it was just not the greatest of performances. It was a pretty bad performance. I would actually probably put it in the ugly category for Sunday.
Yeah, and I have in that ugly category, I do have the defense, because I had in the bad. And I think that there almost needs to be a category in between the good and the bad, which is where I'd put the offense. Because I don't know that it was quite bad, but it wasn't good.
I thought it was all right. You put up 24
is,
points against the Ravens team, which I guess it's only 17 because Charlie Jones' punt return was 7 of those points. Who knows? The offense could have driven down the field that play.
Yeah. And that's why I think that I don't know that it was quite bad, but it wasn't good. There were some aspects. I think Joe Mixon had some good runs. Because I think that's been the thing is the running attack. And it'll be something that we can talk about here when we talk about Calfgate, because I think if you're having calf issues for a quarterback that is continuing to go, you might want to establish and lean on that run game a little bit more. And it's not been something that they've necessarily done, because I think Mixon has given you some good runs.
Yeah, no, I think Mixon's ran fairly well in the first 2 weeks of the year. It seems like the inside zone running play is working to a crisp right now. Mixon's hitting the hole where I think in years past, Mixon's been pretty hesitant. He's trying to do the Le'Veon Bell cutback, in years past and then, defenders are just catching up to him too quickly. And you're not really seeing that this year. You're seeing him be an absolute bowling ball in these inside zone running plays and finding the hole, hitting it quickly, and rattling off 4 or 5 yards almost every carry. Now, we could say oh yeah, we should see the offense run the ball more. There's been more success. Well, then the defense starts to anticipate that a little more. And I guess if that happens, then maybe the passing plays start to open up a little bit more down the field. So I'm not sure what the offense could do to do better. It seems like against the Ravens, it seems like they're just playing too high every play and they're not able to get that deep passing play. And kudos to Joe in the second half for working the middle of the field and working the mid-range game instead. And he fit a lot of nice throws in there in that second half. So I'd probably put the offense mostly in the good category, especially the second half offense. That might have been in the really good category. I guess we can't call it great. They did have a 3 and out in that second half. That was absolutely brutal.
Jared writes in and says they do need to run more, treat the early season like the Buffalo playoff game, run the ball to protect Joe. And I think this kind of is a good transition into the, protecting Joe, because I think the biggest story is kind of going inside baseball here. I live about 2.5 hours from Northern Kentucky, Cincinnati area. So after the game, it was kind of nice that I get to kind of log off of social media just because I have to drive home. So I missed all of this that Joe Burrow potentially re-aggravated his calf. So I get home, that night at about, I don't even know, 7 or 8 o'clock, something like that, and log on to social media and see all of this about the Burrow calf and that he has potentially re-aggravated this calf. And immediately I go, son of a gun.
Yeah.
Here we go again. This is exactly what we need. Now, I know it came out today that apparently he's doing a little bit better and is feeling better today, but that's all from sources and so on. Burrow will presumably talk tomorrow. Usually he talks on Wednesdays, but since the game is on a Monday, he'll talk tomorrow. And that's, I think, going to be the first time when you feel better. So, Mick, just as a whole, your takeaway from this Burrow calf concerns and so on.
There's just a lot of unknowns. And I think Jake Lisco mentioned on Locked On Bengals after the game, he's like, I honestly thought this whole calf issue was put to bed when Joe was practicing to start week 1. And obviously it wasn't. That the calf was limiting him and his mobility in the pocket. And now he potentially re-aggravated it, and it couldn't have come at a worse time. The team is in an 0-2 hole. And, at this point, you're kind of looking at the cost-benefit analysis of, well, do I trot out Joe Burrow on a re-aggravated calf injury because my team is 0-2 and there are, games to be played to get you out of that hole? Or do I play the backup quarterback, protect my long-term investment, and potentially lose the next few games that should be wins? So, and then you get the team into a bigger hole. So it's a catch-22 there. I'm going to respect.
I think your question. your question is a 70% Joe Burrow better than a Jake Browning or a Will Grier?
I think it is, but that 70% Joe Burrow could very easily become a 0% Joe Burrow.
But it very easily could mean Joe Burrow plays on it, you're good, you roll through, and then he's able to rest it very soon, coming, or, it's all of these questions because, like you said, no one knows the answer to them.
No, these injuries
I don't even think Joe Burrow does.
At such a high rate, Sam.
Yeah, and especially, the muscle injuries.
Yes, and it's I guess it's the first one he's ever had to deal with. I've heard this is his first soft tissue injury. Yeah, these things re-aggravate themselves. Hamstrings re-aggravate themselves. Calves re-aggravate themselves throughout the year. These things could dictate seasons for players.
But then, and I think another thing with it too is that you could let's just say, okay, Zach Taylor during his press conference tomorrow afternoon says, "Hey, we're shutting down Joe Burrow until after the bye week." Just for example, he very well could be that game after the bye week against the Niners. Go out there and re-aggravate it again.
Yeah.
They're
very well could.
And that's, or let's say he says we're going to hold him out until December the 1st, or whatever it is. And I don't remember what the first game is in December. Colts, maybe. No, I guess it's the game before the Colts. Regardless, it doesn't matter as to who it is. Who's to say that he sits out 10 games or whatever it is and re-aggravates it that first game back?
Yeah.
Or do you come out and you say, okay, Joe, we'll see you at training camp? I don't think you could do that.
It depends on how the season goes for that. Because, say they sit out Burrow these next 4 weeks, put him on IR or whatever, and the team's in an 0-6 hole, which, God forbid, that happens. But
rest in peace, our livers.
Yeah, rest in peace to all my internal organs. But honestly, do you tank? Do you tank and then try to get a blue chip prospect early on in the draft? The Niners, Kyle Shanahan, the Niners, John Lynch, that whole organization is notorious for that. And I think that's why you kind of see the long-term success that their franchise has had, is that, well, if their quarterback goes down, I guess I'm going 3-13 this year, and I'm getting a top 5 draft pick. And
Marvin Harrison Jr., Traden T, Marvin Harrison Jr., Jamar Chase.
Yeah, you could be in that, and I don't want to give up on the season this early. We're only 2 weeks in.
No.
But if we're just playing hypotheticals, just play hypotheticals here.
Because I think, and you made the good point of, I think we feel in a way kind of similar to 0-2 did last year. And I think let's take the calf out, because obviously the calf has concern. But I think we feel probably kind of similar to the way we did, and the games have gone in a way kind of similar.
Yeah, if the calf injury wasn't a thing, I would not be concerned about this year at all.
Because I think, but then again, I think an argument could be made if the calf injury wasn't a thing, that they might not be 0-2.
Yeah, they might not be 0-2. I don't know. The Browns just match up with us really well, so that probably would. Let's face it, probably could have been very well.
They wouldn't have looked like donkey crap, though. There's no question about that.
No, they wouldn't have looked inept. But, and then you could have seen that. I think you would have seen just an absolute, offensive masterpiece against the depleted Ravens secondary if the calf injury wasn't a thing. So I don't know. There's just so much uncertainty with this calf thing with Joe Burrow. This thing is going to dictate the season, I think. And is it going to dictate it I mean, I don't know how it really dictates the season in a good way, because you just want your quarterback to be healthy and to have all the plays at your arsenal and everything's just working great. But I don't know. There's just so much uncertainty with it. I don't know. What are you hoping for in this Ravens game? Are you just, or for this Rams game? Are you hoping that he's playing, or what are your thoughts on it? I know that we don't necessarily have all the medical intel available to us on this. So
I don't know. Like in all seriousness, I could sit here and I don't know how you are, but I do like a good pro and con sheet list. Where you kind of write it down. I call it
cost benefit analysis.
Okay,
that's a CPA.
Are you an accountant or something? But pro con, cost benefit, and so on, is because there are pros. I mean, because here's the thing: how confident do you feel in Jake Browning or Will Grier? And I kind of want to take that point and I want to go back to it here in a few minutes. And it's like, so that's probably in the pro to playing Burrow. Like you need to maybe do that, because what is your confidence level in the backup guys on that? But then again, your con is, okay, there have been ties into calf injuries leading to Achilles. Like, what happens with that? Like, what happens if Joe Burrow goes out there and blows his Achilles? Because if that happens, then then you're done. Like you're going to have to tank pretty much, because there's can Will Grier, Jake Browning win you a couple of games in a pinch? Yeah, I think they probably could if it comes down to it. Can they make the playoffs? I don't think so. I don't think so in the AFC North.
No. Benny Lococo says in a comment, and Hude Benny, thank you for the comment. Man, I just don't know about this calf injury with Burrow. I say we play the long game. He's our franchise. I agree, kind of. I think, so we talk about our confidence level of Jake Browning or Will Grier. If there's any game to throw these guys into, it's probably the game upcoming on Monday. Now, I know you want to avoid an 0-3 start as much as you can, but if there's a game that could be winnable, or where the offense can at least function, it's probably against this very inexperienced Rams defense. So I'm not sure.
Before we get into the Rams, too, I kind of wanted to ask you this question. Let's say our worst nightmare comes out tomorrow. I don't know if this is worst nightmare, but worst nightmare, I think, would be them saying that Joe Burrow tore his Achilles or something like that. That would be worst nightmare. But let's say bad news happens tomorrow and Zach Taylor says, we have made the decision to put Joe Burrow on IR. Who starts on Monday night? Who starts on Monday night? Is it Jake Browning, or do they do the move that they did? Jeff Snellen writes in, it could be. Jeff Snellen could be predicting it. Ryan Finley could be coming back on
There
Monday.
is a precedent here. There is a precedent.
I think that Ryan Finley decision, Ryan Finley was Jake Browning in this realm, whereas Brandon Allen was Will Grier in the realm of, they were on the practice squad and they ended up pulling up Brandon Allen because they had more confidence in him. Although Ryan Finley still will have, one of my all-time favorite victories as far as a regular season. I will always treasure that moment. But I ask you, Mick, is who would have a better chance, or who would you have more confidence in, Jake Browning or Will Grier?
Will Grier.
And I agree.
Yeah.
Because I think we've seen Jake Browning, and Jake Browning is a quarterback. He does know how to throw the football, kind of. He can stand up and catch the snap. I guess he can run a little bit. But that's about it.
I see a little bit of Jeff Driscoll's game in Jake Browning. So let's give Jake Browning
which tells a lot about you. How do you compare Jake Browning, Jeff Driscoll?
I mean, Jeff Driscoll came in and started and lost every game he started in 2018, but he came in and filled Andy's role somewhat admirably. He came out there and put his all into playing, and that's really all you can ask a guy to do. But yeah, I think you're knocking on Jake Browning a little too much. His sophomore year of college at Washington, and this might have been a jailbroken offense anyways, but hell, Jake Browning was receiving Heisman votes in what was it, 2019? His 2019 season?
Should we just go through and list quarterbacks that have received Heisman votes? Like, on how much confidence? Like, and that's the thing
is there that many?
Let's just name somebody, Johnny Manziel. Like, how much? Johnny Manziel won the Heisman.
No. Yeah, Johnny Manziel did win the Heisman. But
okay.
43 touchdowns, 9
Troy
interceptions.
Smith.
It was actually 2016. That was a long time ago. Troy Smith. Yeah. that's.
So I mean, and that's. I agree, though. I think Will Grier. Now, I say I have more confidence in Will Grier. Now, it's like me saying I have more confidence in Brandon Allen than Ryan Finley. Like, it's not like I'm saying that Will Grier is the savior. But
I probably have more confidence in Will Grier than I would in Brandon Allen, though, if I'm going to be honest with you.
I agree. Oh, look at Paul Reeves coming in here. You know what, Paul? That's a
Is
low
Paul,
blow
is Paul
already.
even a Bengal? Who's Paul
He-
a fan of?
Paul's just I know he's a big. I don't really know who Paul's NFL team is. I guess I know he's a big Braves fan. He likes the Florida Gators. He might just be an NFL fan. I guess he might cheer for
Just
the
an
Falcons.
overall sports savant. Also, Paul, we didn't mention this on the podcast
Yes.
last week, but I do have a beef with you because you picked before me in our Sports Jungle fantasy draft, and there was at least a few Cowboys
Ooh,
fans.
he's a Cowboys fan. I didn't know that, Paul.
He's in a good spot right now. They've got a really good
He is.
roster. But Paul Reeves picked before me in a lot of rounds in this fantasy draft. I think there's at least 3 or 4 times where he picks the guy that I want right before the pick before
Hilarious.
I wanted to get that guy. And yeah, I was cursing out Paul Reeves while I was yeah, I know you killed it in the draft, Paul. We don't need to talk about this more.
See, my top 2 picks, and we're getting off topic a little bit, but I got my top 2 picks in that draft. First round, Nick Chubb. Great job, Sam. Great job, Nick Chubb. Second round,
did you pick up Kareem Hunt?
No, I picked up the other guy.
Ford.
Yes.
Jerome Ford. Okay.
And second round pick, Cooper Kupp. Great job, Sam. So my top 2 picks already out. I know Cooper Kupp could come back, and speaking of Cooper Kupp, it's a perfect transition into talking about Monday Night Football. Mick and I are both decked out in our white. We're ready. I talk about it. I'm a small town radio guy. I broadcast high school sports on Friday nights. And the past 2 years or 3 years, maybe, the high school that I do games for has had a Thursday night game. And the past 2 years, the Thursday night game that they have broadcast has been on the same night as the Bengals Thursday night game. It has been just like it's almost like they're just toying with me. That included last year's Thursday night game against the Dolphins. I specifically deleted all of my social media, muted all texts, turned off all notifications so that I could get home and not know the score or anything and go back and watch the Dolphins game. But when they cut to it and I saw it and saw everybody in all white, because listen, everybody went all out in the all white. I was incredibly impressed with how everyone actually followed the theme and how they painted everything. To say I had FOMO was the biggest understatement ever. I got so jealous of everybody. And then you had sent me a video that I didn't see until after the game because I specifically didn't want to have any potential spoilers because I didn't know when you sent the video. I didn't know if it was, even if it was a picture in the middle of the game that I possibly could have seen a score or something. So I waited until after. And when I watched that video, it just kept getting more and more. So to say I'm excited about being able to experience Monday Night Football and the whiteout is a ginormous understatement. I can't wait. And that's not even saying about the game.
And I do think whoever you cover Grayson County High School for having that game, because that was my wife's I guess she went to a game once in 2015. It was the 2015 game against the Steelers, the Andy Dalton thumb injury game. So not a good experience there. So that was her second game, and she absolutely loved it. So thank you for providing a good experience to my wife, Sam, at the Bengals-Dolphins game last year, Grayson County High School football team.
At least the Cougars won that night, which made things a little bit better. But because all I knew going into rewatching the game that night is I accidentally saw a notification that said Tua Tagovailoa was hurt. That's all I knew. So I knew something happened to Tua during it. I didn't know what. I just knew he got carted off. And it was a wild scene going back and watching it and so on. And the worst part about it is that, I live in a duplex. So I have a connecting wall. And usually during Bengals games, since they're at 1 o'clock, or I guess I live in Central Time Zone, so at noon, I can be loud, and I'm not one, I can yell and listen. But when you're rewatching the game at 2:30 in the morning, so I'm sitting there and wasn't there was a big pass play to T. Higgins in that game, if my memory's right.
Yeah, the chunk play, it was a touchdown. It was a seam route.
First play of the second half, maybe?
No, I think it was right before the first half ended.
Okay. Regardless,
up
I'm
14,
sitting there and I'm like trying not to start screaming at the top of my lungs and wake up my neighbors. But again, we're getting off topic. I'm just very excited to get the whiteout game and experience. And then you throw on top of it that Chad Johnson and Boomer Esiason are going to be Ring of Honor inductees. I mean, I'm going to be a pig in slop.
Yeah, I know we didn't discuss this before the show in terms of what we wanted to talk about, but now that we're talking about, do you want to talk about the Ring of Honor inductees?
Sure. This
Chad
is good
Johnson
before we talk into the preview.
Yeah. Chad Johnson, Boomer Esiason. Now, anybody that knows Sam and I, we are not particularly the youngest Bengals fans doing podcasts. We're both in our mid-20s, and we didn't really watch Boomer play. But obviously, we know all of the great things that he did for our franchise, an MVP in 1988, a Super Bowl appearance in 1988, multiple years as a starter. Actually came back after like a 5-year hiatus from the team to play in 1997 when I would assume all hopes were just completely shot because the roster and the coaching were so bad. So it's great to see Boomer get inducted. He's been an ambassador for the franchise ever since he retired and became a part of that CBS pregame broadcast crew. And yeah, I've got a soft spot for Boomer, and I'm just glad he's in. We did watch Chad Johnson play, however.
And Chad, listen, if Chad Johnson played for the Cowboys, he'd be in the Hall of Fame.
I think Chad Johnson should have been in the Hall of Fame a long time ago. And I touched on this on the podcast before the season started. If you look at Chad Johnson and Calvin Johnson's resumes, they are almost identical. Now, Calvin Johnson did have more like record-breaking seasons. But if you're looking at all pros, Pro Bowls, playoff appearances, yada, 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 they have almost the exact same resume. And Calvin Johnson was a first ballot Hall of Famer.
And here's the thing that Chad deserves a lot of credit for as well, is that Chad helped in that era of Bengals. He helped rebuild everything. He made Cincinnati Bengals football cool again.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the thing that you ask so many, and we see this all the time, Mick, is, we've met a couple of people from tailgates that we've gone to over these past couple of years. And it's like, oh, where are you from? And they'll be like, oh, I'm from Nebraska. And it's like, you're a Bengals fan from Nebraska. How? And it's amazing how many times we've heard is Chad Johnson.
Yeah.
Like that's the reason I became a Bengals fan. And I cannot wait because I already know that both of those guys are going to get massive ovations on Monday.
Oh, I'm going to go absolutely crazy for Chad. Like that guy was so damn good at playing the wide receiver position. It's crazy how good that guy was and how dominant he was in the league for a consistent period of time, a good 6-7 year stretch where he was a top 3 receiver in football. I'm going to go absolutely crazy. And I think the season ticket members absolutely got it right when voting these guys in this year.
Yeah,
including us, by the way. We got it right.
We did. And last year we picked Willie and Chad. This year we picked Boomer and Chad. And I think it's interesting now we got to figure out who the heck we voting for next year.
I'm going to go with Leapin' Lamar, I think. I think I'm going to go Lamar Parrish, even though I never watched him play football.
And you know who I might vote for is just in talking about the ambassador role. And again, we're getting off topic. This can be a great offseason topic. Is Dave Lapham.
Yep.
Because
I don't blame you for picking him.
I think for one is it would mean a lot to him too. Like does his career as a player do it? Maybe not. And then I was also thinking maybe I could vote for Corey Dillon too.
Okay. Let's move on to the game. Let's move on to the game before we get very off.
What are we not allowed to like Corey Dillon or Icky Woods on this podcast here?
I would vote for Icky Woods before I'd vote for Corey Dillon. Sorry, Schubert.
Bengals Rams on Monday Night Football. ESPN is where the game will be on. Chris Fowler, from Saturday night on College Football. Dan Orlovsky, Louis Riddick, and sideline reporter Laura Rutledge will have the call. I think I read that John Hussey is the official who John Hussey has done a Monday Night Football game against with the Bengals in it.
Which one was that?
And which one was it? Well, Ryan Finley magic.
Oh, okay.
So, does that mean something?
That's
Probably
good
not.
precedent right there. You know, history always seems to repeat itself, Sam. So I don't know.
Let's talk Bengals offense versus Rams defense. Let's just say Joe Burrow plays. Let's say that all of this calf thing was more of just he was sore after playing a football game, and really he's not changed much at all. When I hear Los Angeles Rams defense, I get bad flashbacks to number 99. And arguably one of the best interior defensive linemen ever, Aaron Donald.
Probably the best.
Yeah, I think an argument can be made for that he is maybe the best interior defensive lineman.
Lawrence Taylor wasn't inside. He was purely edge, right?
Yeah, but edge. I mean, both of them are in that, like, I think if you're let's just put it this way. Mount Rushmore interior defensive lineman, Aaron Donald is on it.
Yes, 100%. But the difference was in that Super Bowl game, it was Aaron Donald in like a stacked defensive cast of like Jalen Ramsey and I don't know. I have so much Bob blocked out of my brain from that. Was Bobby Wagner on that team?
Yes,
maybe Bobby Wagner.
Eric Weddle.
Eric Weddle coming out of the wheelchair of retirement right there. It was Aaron Donald and a bunch of somebodies. This week it's Aaron Donald and a bunch of unknowns.
And I mean their defense is, but I think it's something that if Burrow plays, I think this offense can do something.
Yes, I agree. 100%.
If Burrow doesn't play, I still think it can do something, but I'm just concerned more based on, I'm just throwing out who the opponent is. When you lose an elite quarterback, you're going to see a drop-off. That's just part of the game. I don't know, though. And that's just what semi-concerns me. If you talk about the Rams' offense against the Bengals' defense, I mean, I think, and, Paul Reeves took it, you've got Puka Nacua, or I don't even know how to say his name, for the Rams, who has been the rookie wide receiver that no one knew existed. And it's been great.
Until the preseason happened, he was dropping 100-yard games. So if we go back to the Bengals offense against the Rams defense here, if Joe Burrow's in and the calf injury is, let's say, at the same point as it was during the Ravens game, I think you could see Joe Burrow right the ship and the offense right the ship and have a very explosive game. Because much like the Ravens game when previewing this, the secondary of the Los Angeles Rams, and particularly, and I guess where it's different, the linebacking unit is not as good in coverage as Queen and Roquan Smith were for the Ravens. So definitely could be working like that short to mid game in the middle of the field a lot more, where Joe's able to dump the ball off and when players can actually make decent plays. So I think if Joe Burrow's in, I think the offense is playing pretty well. Now, if one of the backups are in, then that's where things might get a little hairy. But we have seen a precedent. And to give Zach Taylor some credit here, we have seen a precedent of Zach putting together a decent game plan with a backup quarterback in to win a game. Ergo, Steelers game, Ryan Finley calling up a great game there. And
with Ryan Finley.
With Ryan Finley playing quarterback. You have Will Greer back there. That's a big upgrade over Ryan Finley.
I think Paul Reeves is a big upgrade over Ryan Finley up there. I'd trust Paul to win a game more than Ryan Finley, and I don't know the last time Paul suited up.
Yeah.
But I think that is that's why I really think that Will Greer will get the start. Is if Burrow cannot go, I think Will Greer will start. And I will also be interested to see if they do some semblance of roster gymnastics as well as I know Tommy Lipscomb and Houday Nation brought up the point of saying that you have now the rule that if they bring Will Grier up to the 53, they can then have an extra quarterback active, that third quarterback rule, because of the 49ers. Now, I don't think that'll work if they elevate him from the practice squad. But if they elevate him to the 53, that can also pretty much make that Joe Burrow decision go up until kickoff and make the Rams have to prepare for multiple different quarterbacks because you don't know who's potentially going to start.
And this is something that Zach likes to do with injuries.
Yes, because he wants to protect. Yeah, he's also one of those. He's a play. I mean, listen, you can say what you want about Zach Taylor. He is a player's coach.
He's a player's coach. What I'm talking about is maybe not being entirely upfront with the whole injury situation. Like, you know what I mean, though. Like he's good at I guess initiating some form
coach
of
speak.
Surprise. Yeah, coach speak. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, be like, how's Joe Burrow doing? Well, he's a little sore. You think he's going to play? Yeah, we'll see how it goes. He's day to day. Yeah, because listen, I'll tell you exactly what will happen during the Zach Taylor press conference tomorrow. They will ask him, how's Joe Burrow? He's a little sore. He's been going through treatment. Is he going to practice? He'll probably go through some, motions and so on. Paul says he's going to eat. We'll see you in Leroy in a little bit. We'll see you later, Paul.
Thanks for tuning in, Paul.
Absolutely. We appreciate you locking in, even though he's not a Bengals fan, locking into the podcast for that. But I think you're just going to see a lot of that coach speak because I don't know that, we very well might not have a decision on who's going to start until literally they run out of the tunnel on Monday night.
Yeah. I think you'll get reports beforehand. Probably. They got to announce the inactives, couple hours at least before the game?
Who says they make Burrow inactive?
I guess they don't have to.
Yeah, and I don't know with it. Let's talk about Rams offense though versus the Bengals defense. I think the Rams offense is probably a better fit for the Bengals defense. I think that is a positive.
Yeah. With the pass rushing woes last week, I would be hard pressed to think that the same issue is going to replicate itself this week. Especially when the interior offensive line of the Rams isn't as good as the interior offensive line of the Ravens. So you could see DJ Reader and PJ Hill having some very good games. And like you said earlier in the podcast, Matthew Stafford's mobility is not what it used to be. And it never really was that great, but it's definitely not what it was 10, 15 years ago.
No, he's almost 40 years old. He's knocking on the door of that. Now, one thing to, if we're talking Rams offense, there's a couple of injuries that we can talk about with this. Of course, no Cooper Kupp.
Yep. Cam Akers is gone, by the way.
And yes, Cam Akers was traded to the Vikings today. And then Joe Newtboom, who is their left tackle, is questionable. I know he dealt with like a neck injury of some sort. So, you could potentially be looking at without your left tackle, and they've been without Cooper Kupp the past couple of weeks. But listen, Cooper Kupp is, on any given day, maybe the best wide receiver in the NFL when he's healthy. When you're losing potentially your left tackle and then already have your top wide receiver out. Now, yes, you've had the rookie playing well, but that has to make this Bengals defense feel well because, and like we just touched on too, is the Bengals have faced two mobile quarterbacks in the first 2 weeks of the season. They now will go a couple of weeks here without facing another one.
Yes, they will. Now, the caveat here, and okay, first, I don't want to accuse you of misinformation, but I looked up on our lads. I had Joe Noteboom, I think, at right guard instead of left tackle. They've had this guy named Alaric Jackson starting a left tackle recently.
Well, according to the ESPN depth chart, that's where I pulled it from, that Noteboom was the left tackle.
Okay, so there is...
and Alaric Jackson took his spot.
Okay, that is... okay. I'm not sure if that's
regardless,
what it is or not.
Noteboom is a guy out on their offensive line.
Yes, Noteboom is out on the offensive line. You are missing a starter there. The offensive line is kind of piecemeal together too. It's not like it's a very robust offensive line by any means. So the front four should have a very clear advantage, and I think the pass rush is going to be a very big key to victory this week against the Rams. Now, the other caveat is that, yeah, Matthew Stafford isn't mobile, but Matthew Stafford has looked pretty decent in the first 2 weeks of the season. Now, going Niners game, 2 interceptions. It's the Niners defense. I don't know what else to say about that other than the Niners defense is really good. But you've seen, you kind of went in and you're like, oh, wow, Cooper Kupp's out. Them going into the year, Cooper Kupp's out. How the hell are they going to move the ball down the field? And they've just had a bunch of no-names just absolutely feast on opposing defensive backs. Puka Nacua looks like a top 15 receiver going into week 3. And then Tutu Atwell has had a very good first 2 weeks of the season as well. Their skill position players are, I think you're going to see them play pretty well. And I think that's probably their biggest thing is that Stafford's just been on fire, and, their run game's been decent with Kyron Williams leading in the backfield right there. So that's the thing that makes me kind of scared about the Rams offense. But the offensive line for the Rams, it's weird because their offensive line's so bad. But they were able to move the ball against the Niners defense and still score 21 points. So it's like it's a big unknown on what we're going to see on Monday regarding that.
What do you want to see as the keys to victory?
So if we're looking at the defense, I think the pass rush is the biggest key to victory. I think the secondary, for the most part, can keep up with the receivers. Now, if we're talking about injuries, Nick Scott is on concussion watch, so Jordan Battle could see a lot more reps or potentially even start the game and play a full, get a full helping of starters reps in the Monday night game, which I'm actually pretty intrigued to see how well he plays in that action. So I think the pass rush is the biggest key for the Bengals. If you can get to Matt Stafford and force some sacks and you put more pressure on them, maybe you force some turnovers out of them. That's going to be a huge key to the victory for the defense. Now for the offense, the coverage game for the Rams is fairly poor, and the receivers should be able to get open on these guys, I would think.
They should.
Yeah. So that should be the case. Now, the other issue is, what are you going to do to game plan for Aaron Donald? Because that guy can just single-handedly wreck games.
Can you even really, in all seriousness, is he just a guy that you just have to let, you obviously have to do something. Yeah.
Yeah. You just see his double teams and triple teams all day and still plays at a fairly high level. But it's kind of hard to see him just absolutely wreck games like he has in the past, just because the rest of the Rams pass rush isn't very good. Their next best pass rusher is one of the 2 Byron Youngs that got drafted this year.
This is where I wish we had Lyle Collins still, because you could just put Lyle Collins out there, have him talk some more crap to Aaron Donald, have Aaron Donald beat him up with his helmet again, and then Donald gets ejected. Exactly.
He's out for the rest of the season.
Yep. And then, we saw that with Myles Garrett. And then, listen, the NFC West is very thankful, and the Bengals may probably win the game. So maybe they should just sign Lyle Collins to a 1-day contract just so we can fight Aaron Donald. Or maybe put Jackson Carman into the game. And then we can maybe have a reason to get rid of Jackson Carman, too.
Oh, man. So who do you think's getting moved off the 53-man roster if they do elevate Will Grier?
I don't know.
I don't know either. I just, that randomly popped up in my head, and I was like,
I don't know.
Who are they going to kick off the roster here? Maybe a quarter, probably Jalen Davis. I'll go Jalen Davis.
But then you go 5 corners, though?
Yeah, for 1 week.
But then you also have the chance of putting Jalen Davis through waivers. I think he'd probably pass through those, but I don't know. I don't know with it. Okay, how about since we're running, getting close here to the end of time, are you about ready for a pick, or do you have a couple of more things you wanted to mention about this game?
No, I think I covered everything I need to pick, and then we can go through picks. Yeah, for sure. So it's going to be kind of a 2-pick thing for me, though. Just one if Joe Burrow's playing, and then the other.
We don't get to do that. We have to. I guess we're not having a contest, so I guess we can make.
Why don't we make 2 separate picks?
Okay. Because we're not making this a
Joe
contest.
Burrow plays, whether Joe Burrow doesn't.
Okay.
Play.
let's say tomorrow they say, "Yep, Burrow is okay. He's the same as he has been, or he's going to be fine." Who wins Monday night?
Bengals.
Score.
Bengals win 35-24.
Bengals 24-20.
Okay. I respect.
There you go. Would be if Burrow plays Bengals 24-20. Will Grier or Jake Browning is the starting quarterback on Monday evening. Bengals Rams. Who wins?
Bengals.
Woo! What's the score?
20-17.
20-17. Since I picked the Rams to score 20, I'm going to keep with the 20. 20-16 Rams.
Okay.
Is if Burrow doesn't play.
Okay. One other thing I kind of want to mention, I did mention that like there's been a precedent of a team rallying behind Zach Taylor's game plan with Ryan Finley playing and starting a quarterback, and then they also won that game against the Texans the next week with Brandon Allen. The only I guess caveat to that is that those games were late on in the season. The first game against the Steelers was against the Steelers team that went 11-0, and then they were just like, "Oh, we went 11-0. I guess we're done for the rest of the year," and they just decided to not give a crap. So that was that. And then you went up against the Texans team where there was a bunch of Deshaun Watson drama, and not the Deshaun Watson drama. It was different, where Deshaun was like not happy with the way the organization was going. He was still pissed off about Bill O'Brien just intentionally sabotaging the team as a GM and getting rid of DeAndre Hopkins, and so on. This is a little bit different because one, you got Sean McVay on the other side of the field. Excuse me. And I don't know what you think about Sean McVay, but I think Sean McVay is a top 5 NFL head coach, and I think he's a.
Here's another thing too we haven't even mentioned. I mean, we've mentioned it in passing, but what's going to be something on the mind of the Bengals too? Revenge.
You talk about like a chip on their shoulder, yeah, a little bulletin board material from the Super Bowl.
You better believe that'll be in the back of their mind.
Well, could be, yeah.
Because you better believe it'll be in the back of my mind. I'm gonna be thinking about it. I want to get some payback because that last play, I have replayed in my head at least 75,000 times.
Which one are we talking about?
The last play.
The Jamar broke
Yes.
Jalen Ramsey, and then
Yes. Yes, when Jay Morrison posted that picture, I died inside. I died inside.
Dark times. You give me flack for bringing up dark moments in franchise history, and you just did it yourself.
I did. What a perfect way to end the podcast too, right?
Happy vibes, everybody. Don't think about that play.
Here, Gino, Eugenio Suarez. Good vibes only. Good vibes only, right? Remember to follow us if you're watching on the Jungle Juice Facebook page. Follow us that way. Follow the Houday Nation Today page as well. Join the Houday Nation group. Subscribe to us on YouTube. We also are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, really wherever you get your podcasts. Just search for us. You can see that. Did you say Words with Friends?
I said we're in France.
Yes,
y'all.
we are. Our French friend hasn't listened in a couple of weeks, so I guess maybe us talking about France last week turned him off to it, which it was only expected because we don't really speak French.
It's only a matter of time that the Frenchmen and women are
all in on us. Right?
Yeah, all in on the Jungle Juice podcast. We gotta find a market somewhere here.
Make sure you follow us that way. Leave us a 5-star review and so on. We always appreciate hearing from you. We'll be tailgating, I know, probably down with Bengal Jim at some point on Monday evening. So make sure you stop by, say hi, or give us a high five, or tell us we suck. That works too.
Yeah. And if, I don't want to, tailgate wherever you want. But if you're going to your game for the first time and you need a good tailgate to go down to Bengal Jim's tailgate down in Lot E, over in Smale Riverfront Park now. Great setup, DJ booth. There's actually live music down there now too. At least there was last week.
Yes, there is going to be a band playing as well this week.
Is it the Bengal Boys?
No,
Are
it is
Bengal
not.
Boys
It is a
gonna be
band.
there?
It is a band actually playing. So that'll it'll be exciting. So make sure if you're going to the game, stop by, experience it. Just walk around the tailgates. Longworth Hall has some great ones. Just walk around, experience life. There's a lot of really great things happening, and hopefully you will experience a Bengals victory on Monday as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's can't wait.
Let's do it. I can't wait either. We're excited for the whiteout. Boomer Esiason and Chad Ochocinco Johnson will be inducted into the Ring of Honor at halftime of that game. It'll be on ESPN.
Do you think he river dances as like his intro? I think he's going to river dance.
Nothing.
You think he's going to do something Chad like?
Nothing surprises me. Nothing would absolutely surprise me with what could potentially happen.
They don't have a celebration montage, an end zone celebration montage beforehand. I'm going to be a little disappointed.
And I'll be interested to see if a Bengals scores, if they'll break out some, like, will they do the pylon, on the field goal? Will they break out a Hall of Fame jacket? Will they do
the proposing to the cheerleader?
Will they try to bribe the ref? Will they, what could potentially happen? All of the, the legendary Chad Johnson moments to honor him on his night. And maybe Burrow will throw a pass left-handed in honor of Boomer.
There you go. Did they say who the ruler was?
I would imagine it's Boomer and Chad.
Okay. I would assume the same thing.
But, or one of the two. It might just be Boomer, because Boomer can't usually come to games because obviously he has his CBS stuff, so he can't come, but he's actually going to be able to get there. So I'd assume Boomer will be the ruler of the jungle. I know they announced who's doing the national anthem, and I'll be honest, I didn't recognize her name. That doesn't mean that she's not very talented. And I know, Mick, we're making a pact too. We're going to be in our seats earlier this week.
Yeah. Hopefully we don't have any ticket malfunctions like we did.
Yes.
Last
and
week.
I'm in fact
under the bus there.
Go ahead and it happened, and I paid the price for it. We'll put it that way. In fact, I'll go ahead and get those ready as we're talking right here. But that'll wrap us up for this week. We'll be back every Wednesday at 8 Eastern, 7 Central for another edition. Hopefully, recapping our first Bengals win on Jungle Juice podcast. So we look forward to that. And see, look here, I'm putting it in my Apple Wallet right now because I forgot to do that last time. See, look, there's our tickets at all. So now we should be good and not have to worry about it. How's that sound? Perfect. We'll be ready to roll on Monday. So until next time, for Mick Nelson, Sam Gormley saying, Hoo day.
Hoo day, guys. Thank you for watching.